Welcome to the IPG Pathshala. The subject is Indian culture, the paper museology, and the course is purpose and principles of display and exhibition. Myself, Supriya Chanda, head of the Department of Museology, University of Calcutta, and paper coordinator of the museology. So, we may start explaining the learning objective on the course purpose and principles of display and exhibition. We may try to learn today the objects and exhibits, display and exhibition, exhibition design, elements of design, exhibit presentation, planning a visual presentation, and exhibit arrangement. As you all know, exhibition is one of the most important means of communication for the museums. It means the showcasing the collection of the museum for the general masses and for other target groups. Educational psychology fundamentals are all integrated into designing exhibition. As it is, museum exhibition is essentially a form of visual communication achieved through the objects or collection or exhibits. The ultimate aim is to communicate the message in a clear, precise manner, very easy to understand for the visitors. There is a difference between an object and an exhibit. Anything, any material which have a material existence can be an object. But being an object doesn't qualify it to be an exhibit. An object only becomes an exhibit when it is given a meaning by adding some value, by additioning a visual or verbal aid like a label. So if we put on in a mathematical formula, object is equal to object plus visual or verbal aids is equal to an exhibit. Any object or exhibits are arranged or shown in a random fashion without any effort for interpretation is called display, and while one object becomes exhibit, then the exhibits arranged in a meaningful sequence with conscious, I repeat, conscious effort for interpretation we may term as exhibition. And then you may ask, what is interpretation? Interpretation is the act or process of explaining or clarifying, translating or presenting a personal understanding about a subject or object. As such, exhibition can be of two major types: object oriented and concept oriented. We have a certain point we have to uh, give attention before making an exhibition. This is the element of exhibition design, where the exhibit is transformed from a concept to a physical three-dimensional entity. Exhibition designers throughout the world use a wide range of technologies and techniques which builds upon a conceptual or interpretative plan for an exhibit, determining the most effective method of telling a story. And exhibition designing is generally done by an exhibition committee formed in the museum, comprising the director or curator, whoever might be the in charge, the designer or visualizer, the educator or interpreter, and the security in charge to take care all the aspects of the safety, security, and communication of the exhibition. As you all know, for the last few decades, there has been some major shift in the exhibition design is that focus on visitor experience. Earlier, we used to put focus mainly on the objects or the collections, but now the focus has shifted to the visitor experience. And also the participatory activities, those have become more prominent and popular too. There are 5 broad stages in which an exhibition design team plans or executes the exhibition. Number 1, planning. Number 2, research and interpretation of the story. Number 3, the design. Then comes the execution part, the production, installation, and evaluation the material or the entire production for future use or to evaluate whatever has been exhibited. There are again a plethora of principles behind the design elements, but mostly the exhibition designers follow 6 basic elements. Number 1, value. Number 2, color. Number 3, texture. Number 4, balance. Then line, and altogether the 6, the shape. The value, we may now discuss on value. What is value? Value is the quality of lightness or darkness. So naturally, black has the lowest value, that is 0, and the white has the highest value, that is 100. That is a 100-point scale. Values are associated with visual weight. This is a visual characteristic of an object, while the less value gives the maximum weight and the high value gives the lighter weight, visual weight. This is not exact, actually it should not be confused with the material weight of an object. Values are very important to give emphasis, orientation. Value may give attraction to an object, it may even repulse, and we can control the value by using pigment, surface treatment, and lighting. Then the second element, color. There are, as you all know, three primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. By mixing them all, other colors are produced. We sometimes refer the hot and cool colors. The yellow to red portion of the spectrum is considered as hot. It attracts attention, and the bluer side considered to be cool, as because ice is blue, it's cool, so blue is cool. Water is cool, as because it is blue. Fire is hot because it's yellow or red, and different colors are associated with different meanings in different cultures. While in our culture in India, we relate white with sacred things. Even when one passes away, we wear white dresses. In the Western culture, the same is done with black cloths. So these are the basic difference between the color and the society. Then comes the texture. Texture is actually visual roughness or smoothness of a surface. Again, this has nothing to do with the practical surface. By touching, I mean visual touching, not by physical touching, you may relate a surface with smoothness or roughness, which is called visual texture. By varying the density of pigments, the quality of line, the strength or weakness of the value, the surface of the two-dimensional images can be given what we call quote unquote toothiness. And the another important element has been the balance. That is the quality of visual weight distribution. And visual balance can again be of two types: symmetrical or formal, asymmetrical or informal. When left and right are exactly same, we may call it symmetrical. When such lines are not meeting at a single point or differ in some other points, that is asymmetrical. Formal doesn't always very desirable atmosphere. It may give a sense of distance, while informal ambience can give a cozy and attractive ambience, what we museologists always aspire to do. And the visual balance may be achieved by shifting the balance or the use of the negative space, that is the background, and employing multiple versus single element, and shifting values and volumes. These are the basic things. Next element has been line. Line is the quality of linearity. It gives characteristics. By using line, you can change textural qualities. Lines can affect visual weight. It can imply directionality. It can show containment, and more importantly, it can delineate space. And the last element is shape, which is the physical or spatial containment. Broadly, shape may be of two types: geometrical, the shapes which have very hard edges like a circle, a square, a rectangle, a triangle, all has hard edges. On the contrary, the organic shape, which is softer, more curvilinear, like a tree. You can contrast, join, overlap, mix shapes, add import, and by doing that, you can add some important visual interest to any composition. Thus, the mixing or positioning of organic and geometric shapes can accentuate the quality of the exhibit. Now we may come to another very important aspect of exhibition, that is the presentation. How could you present the exhibits before the visitors? Because a good scientifically arranged presentation of exhibits can enhance the exhibition or interpretative value and gives the visitor a viewing comfort. There are several factors to have a good presentation. The first one, the considerations of human dimensions, because all we human beings are different. Some may be tall, some short, some have some broad shapes, some may be thin, some may have special needs like use of wheelchair, use of crutches, sticks. These all are to be considered very carefully, and ergonomically designed exhibition can enhance the value of the production immensely. The second consideration should be the space, because we all human beings feel very comfortable where our freedom of movements are not restricted, or we do not feel overtly confined or exposed. In terms of the response aroused, space may be defined as formal or informal, cold or warm, interestingly masculine or feminine, the public space or a private space, awesome or intimate, graceful or vulgar. These all things need to be considered before designing or presenting the exhibit before the visitors. Another element for presentation should be the human behavioral tendencies. Behavioral tendencies that need to be considered to create effects, move people, and attract attention. Some of the shared behaviors are touching. All we face such experience in our daily life. Whatever is kept near the sitting position or at reach, people used to touch or tend to touch the things which are near one's own reach. Then entry response, what people do after entering an exhibition. Generally, they are attracted to the larger entrance. The visitors may sit or lean on the surface if it is allowed his or her reach. In India, we have a tendency to turn left after entering into an exhibition hall. In the West, this behavior is quite opposite. They tend to turn right. Some people relate it with the traffic approach, as because here in India we follow the left lane, but possibly this theory doesn't hold any water. It has something to do with our own culture. The people generally follow the left wall on which the exhibits are lined. To negate it, more interesting exhibits might be placed on the right also. We tend to stop the first exhibit we see, ignoring the others. This has to be considered before presenting the exhibits. The exhibits closest to the exits are least viewed. Quite naturally, after completing visiting the exhibition, we really feel hurry to go out. So the important exhibits should not be placed near the exits. Preference for visible exits. This is probably an animal instinct. People generally do not enter any place where the exits are not visible. And we prefer the shortest route to go out of an exhibition hall. So considering that, the objects or important exhibits must be placed in the shortest route possible. As because our language scripts, most of our language scripts are read from left to right and top to bottom. So while putting the labels, we must consider these things. And quite naturally, the larger types attract your vision, so you read more. We try to avoid darkness for the fear of insecurity. We tend to attract it, the more colorful things, that is called chromophilic behavior. The same is photophilic. We tend to go to the place which are more lit. We tend to see the larger things, that is the megaphilic behavior. And you cannot compel a visitor to go on seeing exhibits. After a certain time, exhibit fatigue has to come when your vision and your mind doesn't register anything. That limit is 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, everyone tends to go out. And the next important thing is the viewing height. Because people are most comfortable and they will spend more time looking to the objects when these are placed at a very properly position, comfortable position. That comfortable position is the center of eye level. that is called average viewing height. For adults, it is 1.6 meters or 5 feet 3 inches. And the field of vision, it is a cone of 40 degrees above and 40 degrees below the horizontal axis. And quite naturally, distance from the object increases the cone and the chance of comfortable viewing area within that cone. So, viewing height and the distance are to be considered before presenting the exhibit. And there are many approaches through which the visitor approaches the exhibition or circulates in the exhibition space. Technically, these are known as traffic flow approaches or visitor circulation. These may be of three basic methods. One is suggested. Possibly this is the best way, which sharply guides the visitor through the intended path. There is another approach which is unstructured or random, where visitors are allowed to move freely and quite naturally one cannot communicate the intended message through this approach. And on the contrary, another very strict and structured method is there, that is called directional, where visitors are allowed to move or rather forced to follow a fixed route. They have no choice to go anywhere, and as museums are not a place where you can coerce people to see, this is the most unscientific and most ineffective method of visitor circulation. Now, how can you plan a visual presentation? It starts out with a layout, that is a visualized plan. It allows to evaluate the finished product before the construction is done, which technically is known as front-end evaluation. Practically every display, exhibit, poster, picture, advertisement, and animation starts with a layout. It may be life size or small scale sketch, which is called thumbnail sketches. Analyzing a layout, number of fundamental characteristics can be studied. These are harmony, contrast, value, emphasis, and the shape. There are four basic shapes on which all exhibits are arranged. They are capital I or capital S, capital T or capital Z. And next comes the visual characteristics of the exhibits itself, which are not very vocal. These are all intrinsic characteristics, like the visual impact. This is the characteristics to arrest and hold attention to an exhibit. The visual weight. Again, I am repeating, this has nothing to do with the material weight. This is the quality of weightiness of the object or the composition as a whole. Visual direction. Every object, every exhibit, everything in our life has got a visual direction through which our eyes move. This is the characteristic of leading the eyes to a certain intended direction. The basic aim is to hold your eyes back into the composition. Wherever it goes, it must come into the center of the exhibit. And the visual balance, feeling of being at rest or the sense of stability. Just imagine the removing of the base of the sculpture Nataraja. It will definitely give you a sense of imbalance. And the visual mass, this is the visual quality of solidity and opacity, whether the exhibit is solid or opaque. And the last element of composition, a good exhibition, is the exhibit arrangement, because on exhibit arrangement, the composition will give you a meaningful communication and interpretation. I already mentioned there is the rule of thumb to place the exhibit at a comfortable viewing height, that is 1.6 meter or 5 foot 3 inches. That means placing the visual mass of the object in such a way that viewing height coincides with the vertical center of the object. There are several ways. Number one, the center line alignment, where the objects are grouped in such a way that the central line passes through the middle of the total visual mass. This is the most desired exhibit arrangement. Often we may find flush alignments where objects are so arranged that top of the exhibits or the bottom edges align at the viewing height. This is not a very desirable thing. It may, uh, result in some disbalanced composition. The third one is the horizon line alignment. Especially the paintings, all the paintings will have horizon line. That horizon line may be in the middle, maybe at the bottom, or maybe at the top. So seeing and judging the horizon line, one can align especially the paintings in such a way that thus it doesn't cause any disbalance. The flanking arrangement, the balancing opposite elements along horizontal line. Suppose you have a very big picture and a number of small pictures. So the big pictures means the large visual mass. You have to balance it with the smaller visual mass by flanking them side by side, keeping the bigger one at the middle. And a very complex arrangement is there. One you can find in the National Museum, New Delhi. There is spiraling arrangement. These use directional qualities that create a spiraling pattern around the center of visual mass. And the balanced arrangement, the individual object is balanced to the whole using the positive elements, that is the object, and the negative space, that is the blank space. And how can you obtain emphasis? Because you need to emphasize a particular object or exhibit to be viewed or to be separated among the lot. You can put emphasis on a particular exhibit by size. Any element can be emphasized by increasing its size. The exhibit can be placed in isolation or may be put into separate environment. You can contrast color, contrast between the objects or between the backgrounds to have emphasis. You can position one object in front of the other or put a single object higher than the rest or may put lower than the rest to attract immediate attention. Change of shape of the exhibition can also give emphasis. The texture, that is the roughness or smoothness of the background, can give you the desirable emphasis. And lastly, the light can be used to enhance the structure and color or to put focus on a specific exhibit. Grossly, there are two types of exhibits: two-dimensional and three-dimensional. Paintings, photographs, prints, drawings, tapestry, textiles, carpets, upholstery, etc. are all two-dimensional and are either hung vertically or spread horizontally. Sculptures, potteries, tools, implements, instruments, machinery, furniture, naturalistic specimens are all three-dimensional, naturally need more space and greater planning. Whatever has been said before are basic principles for both two-dimensional and the three-dimensional exhibits. A care is needed in grouping three-dimensional objects to give equal importance to each and every item. Placement of objects in relation to each other and to the visitor needs special consideration, as overlapping each other in relation to horizontal plane is quite intricate. There are other factors also for a good exhibition, like the choice of light, natural or artificial, which again depends upon the space where the exhibition is held, in open or in a closed environment. Nature of the objects, whether the particular object is sensitive to the light or not. The resources available, including the financial resources. The opening hours, an exhibition in the night, the type, the passive display or the participatory or interactive, and the duration of the exhibition, whether it is permanent or temporary. Evaluation of an exhibition is another very important factor. As I have already mentioned, while planning you can have front-end evaluation. While making the exhibition, you can call the stakeholders and have formative evaluation. And once the exhibition is installed, you can have summative evaluation for future planning. These are all very effective for planning for exhibition. So to sum up whatever has been said so far, despite all, the several changes have took place in the recent times in exhibition designing, like the central placement of object now is preferred over the earlier linear arrangement. Passive display has paved way to participatory and then interactive display techniques involving the total experience, hands-on, minds-on, and the hearts-on. With the advanced technology like haptic, that is the touch experience, virtual reality, the augmented reality, the museum nowadays resort to immersive visualization where the visitors immerse themselves in the visual effect to have a very effective experience. Nevertheless, despite all advancements, the basic principles described above remain the same. And so the ultimate purpose for a museum exhibition, effective communication, ambient learning experience, and the visitor's satisfaction, aesthetic or didactic. Whatever might have been, that is in a nutshell, we have discussed the purpose of an exhibition and the principles behind setting up of an exhibition. If you want to learn more, you can go through the e-text. You can also go through the references that have been cited in the bibliography, the web links, and the learn more section. And whatever you have learned, you can evaluate yourself by going through the self-assessment quadrant. Thank you.